I'm Mark Hebscher, Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up.
This week's special guest represented this country in judo, winning multiple national titles. Of course, you may know him as WWE Superstar Santino Marella. Yes, we're talking about AnthonyCarelli, Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Coming up! Our special guest today, 36 years in judo, 30 plus years as a black belt. He's a 5-time junior national medalist, a former junior national champion and junior world team member, a judo coach from 2016 to 2020 at his Battle Arts Academy in Mississauga, first ever Judo Canada ambassador, a 10-year veteran of the WWE as Santino Marella, former Intercontinental, U.S., and Tag Team Champion. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, AnthonyCarelli. Anthony, great to have you here, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be here, kind of, just us, so we can chat. We've been putting over judo and our fantastic athletes, but now it's our time.
Well, we will touch a little bit on the judo team because they did so well at the Olympics and everything else. But I want to focus on your career. And because you've had a spectacular one. Matter of fact, you just got back from Poland, where you're still wrestling and still going at it. Tell us about Poland.
Well, I guess these guys a while back, they contacted me via Facebook to do a podcast, and they had plans for this company to get off the ground, and they said we'll reach out again once we're up and running, and they did, and so it was a really cool mix. One of the guys. He works for a company that puts on like rock concerts and large events like that, MMA fights. So he had access to this incredible staging, LED walls, lighting. It was like a SmackDown quality event. And the other guy, he is an MC for, they do these things I think it's called Freak Fights, where they have YouTube celebrities in Poland that train and do MMA fights. Kind of what's happening now with some of the celebrity boxing type stuff.
Yeah,
so
Logan Paul.
He's really well known, and the other guy had the technical side, and together they had put this show. There was a few colleagues from North America were there, and we were just like, this production value is incredible. It's called Primetime Wrestling. So I did do a match, but we helped produce and put together some of the shows and the flow of the shows and how matches should go. And then we stayed and helped train some of the talent because the production value was ahead of where the talent is. So the future is bright. It was a great start. They had so far hundreds of thousands of views, and it's streamed on one of their national digital platforms. So it was very encouraging, and we'll be back and we'll continue to help them. And they got a good thing there. Hopefully they can really, capitalize on it. And it's like when a plant starts and it's a good start, you want to nourish it and help it grow into a big, beautiful tree.
So it sounds like you were impressed by what you saw there for the initial, startup.
Yeah, very, very impressed. Very impressed. And I didn't get enough. I like sightseeing, I like being a tourist for a day, but we went to Krakow for a few hours. It's all we could squeeze in, but gorgeous, gorgeous city. And it was my first time traveling since COVID, really. So, not knowing exactly what documents to I got a test before I left. I got on the plane in Poland and, whatever, I got my vaccine stuff. And anyway, it was a little confusing upon entry, but doable, definitely doable.
You have Italian on your way to Italy at some point in your career. It wasn't quite like having to learn Italian on your way to Italy at some point in your career, right?
No, yeah. Well, it was funny. So growing up in Mississauga, there's tons of Polish people that in my high school, in my neighborhood, and even my judo coach. the national coach was Polish. So, you pick up a lot of words, and the Polish fans just thought it was really cool that I knew some words. And it's funny, the limited vocabulary I know was completely applicable to this tag team match where the guy's reaching for me and trying to tag me in the corner. And I'm saying like, dawaj, dawaj, chodź. Means like, come now, go, go, go. And so I was encouraging him in Polish. And, in the beginning, I just said, hi, how are you? I'm Santino. And it was, I think the effort was appreciated.
Yeah, you know what? That's awesome, and I think that says a lot about who you are and how you get things done. Uh, I heard you on another podcast a while back, and you were talking about when they ask you to do something, the answer is always yes, right?
Yeah. And then you better
Right?
knock it out of the
Yeah,
park when it comes. Yeah.
yeah. Right. So, okay, so we want to go back to the beginning. First of all, I want to ask about how is Melina Rose Carelli, and we saw Marco
Oh
for
God.
briefly before we got on the show. How are the kids?
Amazing, man. So my eldest is down in Orlando. She's making a go of it, and she's wrestling and training multiple times a day. Bianca, yeah, she's on
Yeah,
the doorstep, man. She's on the cusp. She's about to. I think she's going to get signed in 2022, and depending on how fast she progresses down there, she may appear on one of the flagship programs by the end of the year, or maybe 2023. But she's doing great, and she's kind of out of the house now, right? She's on her. It's really fun to watch her have her moment and her time, and I just I just can't wait to get a call and say, Dad, can you really be, I even get choked up thinking about it. Can you be in this town? Just, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but be in this town on this show. And I know that something big is going to happen. And if the camera's on me, I'm going to be a mess in the stands. But that's one. And then, of course, I got Marco's turning 3 next week, and Melena Rose is turning 3 months. It's just
yeah.
mind blowing, For 24 years, I was, my parental identity was just my daughter and I, and all of a sudden there's these like 2 kids that just a day doesn't go by where I just look and I'm just shake my head like this is amazing, it's awesome.
Bless for sure. I want to talk about your how you got. We're going to go right back to the beginning. How did you get started in judo? What got you started in the sport? Because that's where it all started.
You know, yeah, there was such a what do you call it? Like a bunch of random occurrences that led up to stuff. I like Bruce Lee and I like Kung Fu. And I thought, I was destined to be like a ninja. I was a kid, and everyone's playing cops and robbers, and I'm walking on the fence with a ski mask and with homemade nunchucks and stuff. And I begged my mom. I said, I need martial arts. I feel the call of martial arts. And she just looked up, and it was the Mississauga Parks and Recreations flyer type thing, and judo fit her schedule, fit our schedule, and I didn't know the difference. I thought it was like
Right.
karate or something. And I showed up, and it was like I think it was like 10 classes, like for over 10 weeks. And then I was recruited to the main dojo, which was at the Etobicoke Olympium, and we trained there for 10 years until I've moved to university. So I started at 9, and I trained right. And after 19, I moved to Montreal. This is some pro wrestling here, but I always used judo as my early professional wrestling identity. The judo guy until I became Santino. But that was really
So
it. That it was
yeah.
kind of a fluke. But once it's in the blood, it's in the blood.
Well, judo is really a good place to start. I mean, when you think about the transition eventually to professional wrestling, you probably can't think of a better place to start than with judo. And can you explain why that was successful for you? Why that transition from judo to wrestling
Yeah. So the most important thing is being okay. So when guys are learning how to
worked out so
wrestle,
well?
they they're worried about falling, and they have to be very good at rolls, like front rolls, and that's like day one of judo. So I was able, by the time I was able to focus and start training, I was 28 years old. It's pretty late, but I was able to fast track because of judo. It's grappling. We learned submissions, arm locks, chokes, throws, pins. It has to be one of the most applicable, combat sports out there for professional wrestling. Of course, amateur wrestling is good, but there's elements in professional wrestling that are not in amateur wrestling, like submissions and big throws and all that stuff. So I was again really lucky that the martial art that I was able to take was going to be completely applicable to what I wanted to do in the future. Because after judo class, we'd always fool around, and that was not very technical. I'm watching that throw. Sorry, that was just like brute power. That wasn't smooth. Yeah, and after judo practice, we'd always play around, do like WWF stuff at the time, and do moves. And so I was always a fan. I just assumed that it was, how do you penetrate that? How do you get in there? Where do you learn? It was just seemed like it was unheard of to even think of becoming one. And then when I was in university, and again, I went to Montreal because that's where the national team was. And because I had wrestled in high school and had success basically adapting my judo for the amateur wrestling rules, I was invited to the Concordia wrestling team, where one of my teammates, his father was a professional wrestler. My first coach, Don Koloff, who at Battle Arts, the arena inside is called the Don Koloff Arena, and named after him. And he was a world caliber champion from Bulgaria, who knew how to take an amateur, combat sport athlete and kind of help them dial it back a little bit for pro wrestling. So I'm used to throwing people when they don't want to get thrown. And then there's like neutral, and then there's people going with you. So I was putting way too much force in the beginning, and people were over rotating and landing on their face, and I had to really unlearn some judo so that I can apply, or just kind of dial it back a little bit so I can apply judo to pro wrestling and not hurt people. But he was a perfect coach for that. And as soon as I found out, I'm like, your dad is what? I'm like, oh my God, my destiny just found me. It was the most crazy feeling that I still, it was like my sense of hearing kicked in, and I could hear all the ambient sound. And I just was very conscious at the time. I was young. I was 19 or 20. And I'm like, I just lined up with my destiny. I just found the connection to what I'm going to do in my life. And it was a very calming, eerie, incredible feeling that I've had a couple times in my life, but this was one of the first ones where I just knew that this connection had been made that was supposed to be made. And the plan in the back of my mind, all the way through university and teachers college was pro wrestling. And yeah, we graduated and worked in the corporate world a little bit, telecom industry and media marketing industry, advertising. And then when the time was right, we focused and we started training. And then quickly I realized there wasn't much going on in Ontario. This is pre-internet and sorry, not pre-internet, but pre-social media and smartphones. I think there was internet at the time, but nobody was looking for me wrestling in Collingwood, Ontario, in a gymnasium, and no one was going to see it. And I knew that I started late, so I had to really not waste any time. So I went to Japan. I knew we had a hookup. One of Don Koloff's original graduates. They have a lot of different names, but we call him Big George. And Big George wrestled in Japan at the original Battle Arts, and that was kind of my only hookup at the time. Just somewhere where I can say, hey, can I come there and train? And so I left. That's Coach in the middle there. Yeah, there he is. And then those are all some of my teammates right there at UFO Pro Wrestling, Universal Federation of Pro Wrestling. And yeah, so I packed up and I had this sit-down conversation with my daughter, who was like 8 years old at the time. And I just said, hey, because my daughter was a star from a child. If you met her at 8 years old, you would say, oh my God, this child is destined for greatness. She's just her presence and the way she would speak, and people would just be like in awe. And I said, you're a star, okay? And I got to get you somewhere where you can be the star that you need to be. But I don't know how to get you into Hollywood, and I don't know how to get you to. But I said I can pretty good at this wrestling thing, and I can go into wrestling and I can make it in the WWE, and then I can reach back and pull you up and bring you to a platform, because WWE has, WWE films. A lot of the guys go on to be actors and actresses, so that connection was there. The relationship between, Hollywood, so to speak, and WWE was there. So that was my in for myself and for her, and it was very hard, very hard. I was in Japan for a year, and I was in Louisville for 2 years, and of course, she came to Japan for a month, and she'd come to Louisville for a month here and a month there, and internet cafe phone calls, and it was probably the hardest time in my life, really. But I was able to come home and kneel down and just say, high five, mission accomplished, we did it, when I got signed. And oh god, these are my indie matches. When I look back, I didn't even know enough to know I didn't know anything at the time, but yeah, it's pretty funny watching this stuff.
Well, now, when you look back at you, I know there was a period of time in your life where you kind of hit a bottom, where there was a real transition where you went from, things were not going well, and then you were able to pull it together. Tell us about that period and how you were able to get out of that funk.
Yeah, well, I guess I was 23 years old, and I injured my neck for the first time in university. And so I had this herniated disc hitting a nerve, and my arm was like semi-paralyzed. I couldn't. I remember I picked up a drink and just fell out of my hand, and then I went to get up and I collapsed. And when you're a young combative sports athlete, and the thing is, it didn't hurt, because if you're paralyzed, it doesn't hurt. So I was losing my mind a little bit, and of course, if you could see, my daughter is an adult. So we got married when I was 20 years old, and I was right in the middle of university. Like, she was born between year 2 and year 3, and I was a full-time athlete, full-time student, new husband, new father, and when I look back, I can't even imagine doing it. I just get up and go to practice, come home, wolf down some lunch, go to school, come home, wolf down some dinner, go to practice, and change diapers, and it was pretty crazy. But all of a sudden, I had a neck injury, and the situation was it was a lot for my ex-wife to go through. She was kind of stuck in Montreal by herself while I'm out there doing all these things all day. So I don't blame her. She packed it in and moved back with her parents, and so marriage falls apart, and now there's this, I'm like, I was in love with my daughter from day one, and I'm like, I don't live with her. I'm kind of losing custody or the right to live with her, and I was, it was just a lot to swallow, and especially when you're a person that believes, if you want something, you go do it. You're in control of your life. You're in control of your destiny, and all of a sudden, there's something you're not in control of. It takes two people to be in a marriage, and when one doesn't want to be there, and you're like, but I want to be here. It was just very strange and frustrating, and then all of a sudden, I found myself when I couldn't train because of my neck, and I graduated university. I had way too much free time on my hands, and yeah, we started partying, and we started getting into some nonsense, and just something I've never done before. And it was a whole other world out there of this, party scene, and I joke about it, and I say that I want to be, I always strive to be the best, and being the best partier is probably something you want to strive for. But yeah, there was a couple of years where we got lost, and unfortunately, they're like prime athletic years too. And so, like '97, I would have been the end of '97. I would have been like 23 years old, and then 24, and then part of 25, and then we kick out in 1999. We kick out, and we start making in this comeback, and I mean, like, run out of money, knock on your parents' door, can I come back? And I messed up, and spending student loans in a way you shouldn't be spending them, and really,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, really, really, it was worse. It's less than rock bottom because you're in debt. And when I was living off of student loans because I was an athlete and I couldn't get a part-time job, and there was no time for a job, absolutely no time for a job. So all of a sudden I graduate university and I'm like, how am I like 10 meters behind the starting line all of a sudden in life? And I thought I was doing the right thing. The girl got pregnant, we got married, and I represented Canada, and I'm fighting for not for my country like a soldier, but I'm representing my country with the back patch that says CAN on the back. And I think that's noble. And even going to university I was taught that it was the a prestigious thing to do. So when I'm doing if I'm doing everything that's right, so to speak, how am I starting life now post university in like a hole? But we clawed our way out of it, and I got a job, and then I got a better job, and then I got an office job, and then a second job, and just trying to save some money and make those student loan payments, and get a car, and just slowly clawing my way back. And which when I look back, the tough times are actually some of the best memories. When you were disciplined and you were hungry and you were organized, and you were taking all the right steps to correct your life. That's some of the most rewarding memories you can have, really, even better than when times are really good. My old coach Rip Rogers pointed that out one time. And he's like, when I went to Louisville, I had to live on a very tight fixed income. I had a little bachelor apartment, and I was learning my craft, training 3 times a day. I trained till I burnt out, and then when I burnt out, I said, okay, I'm doing everything I can do. If my body's shutting down, then obviously that's the most I can do. Because I trained in weights in the morning, wrestling practice at lunch, a second wrestling practice, and if I'm away from my daughter and if I'm away from my family, I'm not going to waste a second. I'm going to train as much as possible until my body tells me that's the limit. And that attitude is eventually what got me hired and got me noticed, and allowed me to come home and say, high five, mission accomplished.
There's a saying, how dark it is before the dawn, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
you get to that point in your life where it seems like things are, it can't get any worse. And in my case, yeah, it did. But then it had to get that worse. It had to get worse for me to get to where I needed to go in order to change. But then you get, it's like, you have that something in you that keeps you going. It's like, don't quit before the miracle happens, right? Because when everybody who's got a success story has that point where you got an opportunity to let it all go, or just keep digging and keep digging, and then you turn that next corner, and then something great happens. Tell us about how that happened for you. Basically, I think you said Louisville and wrestling school, and that's kind of where the
Yeah.
break took place, if
So,
I'm not mistaken.
and it's incredible because, again, it's these coincidences. So I'm in Japan. I stayed my first 3-month tourist visa. I make some excellent connections, and I had to battle my way through the dojo. I showed up there with a lot of skill and not a lot of cardio because I had to get out of Toronto too.
Mm-hmm.
The partying was always kind of there. Even if you're doing really well for a few months, you can slip up and go out and have a good time, and it's just not good for your health. So I get out of there, and then slowly I'm kind of working my way through the gym and tapping out everybody till I'm tapping out the coaches, and then they go, okay, this guy's for real. He's here and he's serious, and opportunities start coming. And but you have to leave the country at the 3-month point because that's all your tourist visa is good for. So then I heard a story about a guy that was there for like a year, and what he didn't tell me is that he would leave and fly to like Korea or somewhere and fly back and kind of re-enter the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I overstayed one of my tourist visas while I was trying to get a work visa. So I went to it was such a long day to go down to, was it Shimbashi? It's a subway station that was an hour subway ride and then an hour walk, and to go to the immigration office and talk with somebody and never get really a clear answer of what I need. So I had to go down several times, and it was a whole day trip every time to go down. Um, and then while I'm trying to, we're kind of narrowing in on the documents we need, because I take back the paperwork and have someone translate it for me. And anyway, in the process, overstayed my tourist visa. And that is a huge no-no. And the guy was like, I remember when they were telling me, they're like, oh, you can't come back for 5 years. And I'm like, maybe I can if I don't do something, or like, are you telling me right now as it, I cannot come back? And that was the thing. I already made the infraction, so I couldn't come back. And then one person luckily said, listen, hey, December 1st, the law is changing for like the first time in like 100 years. If you overstay your tourist visa, you can't come back for 1 year. So kind of keep a low profile. Whatever law is in place on the date that you leave, that's what applies to you. So I have stayed till December, and I left, and I was banned for a year. But I had an apartment, I had a scooter, I had a bicycle. I had like over the year furnished my apartment, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of a plan here. Like I can't just leave right now. But it was a blessing in disguise, because then I ended up going to OVW in Louisville, Kentucky. So I got home in like December of 2004, and I think I left down. It was May, the first week of May, 2005, to Louisville, where I ended up meeting like one of my most influential coach ever, Rip Rogers. And so now at this point, I'm 31 years old, and I'm 5'10". Like, I mean, the odds are stacked against me significantly, but I was just good at it. You know, Rip Rogers, the way he taught me, everything made sense, and I was just expediting this education. It's like he was downloading so much, years and years and years of knowledge, and I was obsessed. I'm watching tape. This gym in Louisville, the LAC, Louisville Athletic Club, they had DVD players on the cardio machines. So I'm watching DVDs while I'm doing my cardio, and going home watching VHS tapes, and uh, you know, learning quickly. And I got signed at 32, and I debuted on Raw at 33. So, I start training 28, first match 29. I'm in Japan for like all of 30, get kicked out. 31, I go to OVW. 32, I get signed, debut at 33. So everything really happened when I look back in quick succession. It didn't feel like it at the time, because, you're away from home, and your every day kind of drags on, and it just felt long, but it was pretty quick. And then, yeah, pack your bags. You're on the road for, the next 8 years straight, living out of a suitcase. And it was cool though when I came back. It was like coming back to, like, because there's a lot of people that are like, God, what's he doing? No one really makes it. It's he's trying to fulfill this crazy dream, and I hope it doesn't get disappointed. And he's down, and I couldn't work in the United States, so I was spending my life savings. And the story, and it's true, is I ran out of, like, my mom worked at the bank, so she sees my bank like going ding, 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 and she's getting nervous and not saying anything. And I ran out of my every last penny, um, like the week of, and then I cashed in an RSP to pay the rent and get some groceries. I think I had to borrow $400. And my mom's like, she's panicking. Like, I'm about if nothing happens in the next month, I'm about to come home at like 32 years old, again in debt, starting from scratch, back to my parents' basement, trying to figure it out again. But I knew it was coming. Guys would give me the look like, just hang tight, hang tight. I heard them talking, like, you're on the radar. And again, everything plays. So doing judo gave me a head start in Japan, and because judo is from Japan, and it helped me just with becoming popular and getting a character. Then coming to Louisville, but coming from Japan, gave me this little head start as well. This guy just came from Japan, and nobody knew what I was doing there. But I mean, the fact that you just came from there,
Sounds good.
must be doing something. It sounds good, yeah. And so anyway, the character. So my coach, Rip Rogers, calls me Boris. Just gave me this nickname in class called Boris. and everyone's calling me Boris. And I'm like, that's my nickname, Boris? There he is there. So my first coach was Don Koloff. So I had this epiphany one night where I'm laying in bed and like, I can be Boris Koloff because there hasn't been that rendition. There was Boris Zukov and Ivan Koloff, but there wasn't a Boris Koloff. So I talked to my coach and I said, can I have the blessing to use Koloff? And he said yes. So I started doing this Russian character. And then I was able to use judo and able to use the style of wrestling I did in Japan as this Russian guy, because I was, I'm a Russian special forces trained fighting prodigy that they took from the home at 10 years old and sent to the military camps. And I had this whole story, and you have
I
to
will break
create the whole
you.
story. And growing up in Mississauga, all my, my best friend and all my friends they're Croatian. So you pick up a little Croatian over the years. So I'd be standing in Louisville, Kentucky in the ring speaking some Croatian, and the people thought it was all Russian. They didn't know the difference, right? This is yeah. Anyway, they, not the most cultured in this particular town, and our wrestling fans, they definitely don't know the difference between Russian and Croatian. So all these things along the way, they just kind of all contributed to this randomness that made this story come true. And then a guy named Jack Bull, who was really funny. He had an awesome character. It was like an alcoholic, past his prime, Evel Knievel character. It was hilarious, actually. And he gets a call from Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes is like, can you ride a motorcycle? He's like, he thinks it's a prank. He thinks it's a crank call because everyone does a Dusty impression. And he's like,
yeah.
nope. And he goes, well, can you learn to ride a motorcycle? Nope. And that's how it ended. The call ended like that. Then he looked at the phone and saw 203 Stamford, Connecticut area code and realized, oh my God, that was Dusty Rhodes. And he just like was panicking. And Dusty Rhodes came to OVW to kind of scout the talent. His son Cody had just come to OVW. So he wanted to keep an eye on Cody too, see how he was progressing. And the story came up and he talked about it in front of the audience. And he said, if you're ever asked to do anything, the answer is yes. Of course I can do that. Can you ride a unicycle? Absolutely. Can you skydive? Yeah, for sure. And then you better learn how to do it. And then literally like a month later, I get this call saying, can you speak Italian? And like this speech just pops up in my head and I'm like, yes, I can. And then, so when I used to work downtown for New Ad Media, I worked for 1 year commuting from Mississauga to Toronto. And I had a little tape. Actually, the tape's here somewhere. I got to find it. And I put it in my little Hyundai Accent tape deck. And I would sit in traffic and listen to this tourist Italian tape. And, where's the hotel? Where's the museum? Where's the police? And all that I'd like to buy. And I just repeated a couple key phrases or whatever I could remember from this cassette. And I'm on speakerphone. It's in Connecticut. There's writers are all around, and they're like, say something in Italian. And I was like, vorrei un mezzo chilo di formaggio, which means I want to buy a half kilo of cheese. It's like the most random sentence you could say. And I could literally see them by hearing them look around and go, that sounds pretty good. That sounds good. And they go, and they said, is there anything else you can say? And I said, mi chiamo AnthonyCarelli, which means my name is Anthony, like the most basic thing you can imagine. But I said it with enough gusto that they go, all right, that sounds great. You're going to fly out tomorrow to Milan, and you're going to be, this storyline that Vince came up with. And I run to, it was Borders. That's like their chapters, the bookstore. And I buy it was an 8 DVD pack of Italian. And my buddy Manbeast, he downloaded it to my old school iPod from his computer, and then the entire flight, I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can. I didn't sleep the whole flight. Espresso. I'm just like trying to absorb as much Italian as possible. And luckily I was able to. And growing up in Mississauga, so my high school, I don't know the percentage. I'm going to say 80 plus maybe 90% of the students are first generation Canadians. All the parents are from Portugal, Poland, Malta, Italy, Croatia. So all our parents have these accents, these funny accents. They learned expressions, funny expressions that they couldn't say right. And so my next door neighbor, Ivan, is son of my gun Ivan. Yes, he always says son of my gun.
Son
And
of my God.
so I adopted that as Santino, and that's Santino's key phrase was son of a gun. And everyone thinks it's so brilliant. And I'm just thinking my neighbor, I'm just recycling and my friends even called me out. They go, "You made a living off of imitating all our parents."
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the picture there when I was in Milan. And getting picked out of the audience. And
Oh,
that was a
perfect.
crazy. And that
So,
was it.
so you
Yeah.
get picked out of the audience. Yeah. And tell us about that experience. What it felt like to get called in, through and climbing through the ropes and doing this
Yeah.
in
So
front
it
of all
was.
those eyeballs.
Oh my gosh! And it was my first time really on live TV. Um, so it was in the middle of a European tour, and it was so in the middle of a big European tour. There's one TV in the middle. Usually it's in the UK, Manchester or London. This time it was in Italy for the first time ever. So Vince had this idea that they wanted to have an Italian guy come out of the audience and win the title, with something that's never been done, where there was an open invitation, an open challenge made to the audience. And the backstory was going to be that I was training to wrestle. I just happened to be there, and I was picked randomly. So I get there, and I kind of get there on Sunday morning, and the show's the next day. So I'm like walking around Milan for a day, which is pretty cool. It's my first time in Italy, really. Once I crossed the border in like the French Alps for like a half an hour, but this is my first time like on Italian soil, and I'm playing this like Italian guy character. It just was kind of funny. I get there, and as soon as I walk in the door, they're coming out of the production meeting, and Arn Anderson looks at me and goes, "Hey, kid." And he remembered me from OVW. And there were some friends of mine from OVW that were now on Raw. So it was, randomly there's some people that go, "Hey, Boris. Oh, my God. How you doing? What are you doing here, Boris?" And I go, apparently I might debut. We'll see. Because, there's always last minute changes. I didn't want to say anything to
Yeah.
anybody. And I just called home and I said to my friends, I go, just watch Raw. I might debut. It could change? I might. So, which is really cool because there was like a huge viewing party at home with all my friends, and one of my, because it's 6 hours ahead there. So one of my buddies went on the dirt sheets, and he sees this thing saying Santino Marella wins the Intercontinental Championship. But he's like, I wonder if that's Anthony. But he wasn't. He didn't know for sure. Things can change. So eventually they seat me in my reserve seat. And then the segment comes out, and Vince comes out, and everyone rushes to the barricade. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't rush to the barricade. Now I'm like several people deep from the barricade. He's not going to see me. There's no way he's going to see me. I'm in a crowd of hundreds of people. And then everyone eventually filtered back to their seat. And then when the promo started, I made sure I was visible at the front. I was not going to be denied being at the barricade. I was probably pushing a few people out of the way, and he saw me, thank God. And then when he invites me to the ring and does this whole spiel, he says, "What's your name anyway?" And I say, "Santino Marella." And I said it was from my father's hometown, where my father came from, San Fili, Calabria. It's a town of like 2,000 in southern Italy. And which was funny because the word got out there in Calabria, in San Fili, that some guy from their town, and they're like, "Who?" It's a town of 2,000. Everybody knows everybody, and they're like, "Who is this guy from our town?" It's like if you're watching a show in Italy and some guy's from Canada, and he says, "I'm from Timmins, Ontario." It's it's not the kind of town like if someone says Toronto.
Yeah.
Anyone can say Toronto, but nobody. If you say it's a really small town, so it was very legit.
Yeah.
And to the audience
Newcastle.
members, to the audience members, they immediately jumped on and believed it because it was such a random small town. They started chanting Santino right away, and then the whole thing happened and we won. But my friends, the way they tell the story, they were just going ballistic, and jumping up and down. They wanted to go drive down St. Clair, waving the flags, um, and one of my favorite things when I came back and I'd run into people from Mississauga or high school is everyone gives me the where they were at that moment. Because, when I was in the ring, there was a lot of quick phone calls. Say, hey, so-and-so, check out Raw. Carelli. Carelli's on TV. And for some reason, I don't know, everyone watched Raw that day. And people tell me that, their wives would be, honey, didn't you go to school with this guy? And, everyone caught it. So everyone happened to watch it. And it was surreal. Like a kid from Mississauga just debuted on Raw live in Milan, Italy, and is defying all the odds. I'm 33 years old and I'm still green because the way my wrestling training was, I was the stuff I was doing was good to get me noticed because it was different, but it wasn't really completely applicable to the type of wrestling I'd be doing as Santino. So I was very green when I debuted, and then again being 5'10" in the land of giants, and so I was from day one very grateful, knowing, and I was conscious of the fact that I had beaten the odds, so to speak.
We talked about that transition, how dark it is before the dawn, and many chances to give it up. And you almost got there to that place where it was kind of like, yeah, I got to go to work now. I'm so far behind. I'm so down. But here I am.
Yeah.
Now here you are, wearing the belt on television worldwide, in Milan. It's like, how do you go from there to there? It's just incredible. It just,
It's
that must have
yeah.
been incredible.
It is. And also, when I was young, I had a lot of success young, national champion and rookie of the year in wrestling. And we won the football championships and I won the wrestling. It was just, everything was easy, it was easy. Honestly, it was kind of easy. And I got cocky, to the universe. I'm like, this is easy. This is all you guys got for me? And then, I fell down the mountain and I hit every branch like Homer Simpson, on the way down. And then I'm looking up and oh my God, I didn't appreciate the view from the mountaintop. But next time when I climbed it, I definitely didn't take it for granted. And there's something scientific, and I would love to have some kind of data on it. The way an arena is designed, all the people's attention and energy is concentrating and congregating to that player's platform, whether it's a boxing ring, a cage, a basketball court. And you're like an antenna in that ring, and you're absorbing all this energy, whether it's telekinetic or whatever it is, attention. And it's something real. Your body becomes, I felt like my cells were like supercharged of energy, and you're never quite the same. I think once you feel that like you're completely saturated with, your battery is
Charge.
full in a way, you've been charged in a way you've never been charged before. And I was cool with it. I wasn't going to keep trying to chase that forever. I can see how some people might get addicted to that and not be able to let go. But I was cool to retire. But there was definitely something there that I wish there was a way to calculate it, and kind of put a sensor on you or something and feel it, because it's real. It's definitely real.
Now, do you miss that though? Do you miss it?
Um, Not so much. It's hard to explain. I was kind of, I had a full life before and a full life after, and um, yeah. So this weekend I came out and there was a nice reaction from the crowd, and that was pretty cool. I could see like it was okay. I don't know. I just feel like it was a very distinct and definitive chapter, and it was good. I was okay to come to an end. This is one of
Now,
my
there's
greatest
also
fears.
the injury factor. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. There was also the injury factor, and you know, you touched on that earlier. It was an injury that really never went away, and you hadn't got it treated, and then of course it resurfaced and caused problems for you.
Yeah, the herniated disc in my neck that happened in university. So that that disc that's kind of slipping out became bone, and it calcified. So now this piece of bone is just touching my spinal cord, like just against it constantly. So any certain jolt and this and that, I get like this shock, and I would have these, I called them flare ups, where I got to be really stiff, and we have to like, ice it and Cairo and massage. And I always did traction. I would travel with a device that would just, I put on the lat pull down machine, 30 pounds, and sit there and I'd pull my head up, and that helped. Al Snow, one of my coaches, would do this cracking thing, and it crack, and it kind of kept me going as well. I mean, I think it was good for me, right? Um, and then the flare ups would just get worse, and they'd last longer, and there'd be like less time in between them, to the point where I knew something had to be done. And that's why I started Battle Arts, because I was like, man, I see where this is going. It's I'm going to be rendered unable to wrestle eventually, so I wanted to have something up and running when that time came, so the transition to life after wrestling would be smooth. And that's what we did, and thank God we did it at the right time, actually. And it's funny because the business, if anyone has ever opened a new business, it's often not making money on day one. But when my WWE contract finally expired, it was the day that we started making money. It was crazy. Like, it was on its own. Like, the training wheels came off, and it was standing on its own. So pretty incredible timing there too, because now it needed to stand on its own 2 feet, and it did.
Now, tell us about Battle Arts. What it encompasses? What do we get at Battle Arts?
Yeah. So when I was in the original Battle Arts in Japan, I loved that the pro wrestlers and the MMA fighters were were interchangeable, and they trained together. So pro wrestlers would go and do fights in Pride and MMA fights, and then these Pride fighter guys would go in professional wrestling shows. So the pro wrestlers in Japan, the mentality they had at Battle Arts was, in the Olympics, that's amateur wrestling. This is professional. You have to outwork them. You have to outtrain them, and they would they called it sick training because it was sick, like hundreds and hundreds of squats and running and push-ups and sparring, and they trained like crazy, and I loved it. It kind of, I was taken out of that environment in Toronto, and I was just an athlete again. And my conditioning was, my groundwork, my submission grappling was like tuned up. I was a machine. I was an animal. I was in amazing shape in Japan, and just battle hardened, sparring every day and doing kickboxing and submission wrestling. And anyway, I wanted to emulate that in Canada, because I believe that pro wrestling should be looked at like you're a professional athlete. Because there are guys, over the years, there's guys that were like fat, and they weren't athletic, or just, they brought something else. You can set them on fire on a table, but they weren't athletes. I want
Right.
to really showcase the athletic side. So I wanted to have a gym where it was, submission wrestling, kickboxing, pro wrestling, and judo. Obviously, I like judo, but I took bits and pieces. So when I was at OVW, the school was also the arena where they would do shows. So I made Battle Arts transformable, and the curtains slide out. You roll up the mats. You put all these chairs down, and now it's a a venue where our students, the most valuable part of their education is that they get experience working in front of a live audience. Because a lot of guys, you can learn to wrestle in front of an empty building, and then you get out there in front of a live audience and you're lost. So my students are really good. I take a lot of pride in the quality of the education they get. I've been to the Performance Center in Orlando, and I see what they do, and I emulate it. And there's Mr. Ishikawa right there. He was the owner of the original Battle Arts in Japan, and he was a big a big reason why I had the confidence to open up this facility in Canada. He had since closed the gym in Japan and was doing something he didn't like delivery or something. And he is like an incredible walking encyclopedia of submissions and catch wrestling. And his lineage is trained by Carl Gotch and the Malenkos. And like he's the wrestler's wrestler in Japan. He wasn't a super big star, but everyone in the locker room goes like, that guy is the real deal, and he's amazing. So we were having lunch there. While I was there with WWE, we were having lunch, and I'm like, if I opened up a school, and he was, I'm there. I'm like, amazing. That's what I needed to hear. So we started calling. I got on the phone with an immigration lawyer and got the paperwork, and he came to Canada, and he coached there for 5 years. And he was really the heart and soul of the gym, because I really wanted to have that connection to the gym in Koshigaya, Japan. And we did. And we had that. So at the time when I was in 2004, MMA was booming, and people now can see what real grappling looks like. The stuff they did in the 70s and 80s isn't going to fly anymore. There was like that really kind of phony. And the guys were so big and strong back then. Like if Big John Studd gives you a headlock, I imagine you would assume that you can't get out because he's a 300 pound plus man. So, but now people are watching and they go, man, can't hold a guy with just his wrist, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I really thought that as the wrestling fans became more submission savvy, that there would be a shift in professional wrestling. So, my analogy was always, if I'm a quarterback, I'm not throwing the ball to where you are. It's to where you're going to be by the time the ball gets there. So I was training my students the same way. I'm training you for the way I believe pro wrestling is going to be by the time you're ready, and not the way it is right now. And to a certain extent, it's happening. There's all these MMA guys in there. And I remember when Hoist Gracie beat Dan Severn, he was on the bottom, and Dan Severn was kind of pummeling him. And being a judo guy, I go, he hasn't been a triangle choke. And nobody knew what a triangle choke was back then. And everyone thinks he's getting pummeled until all of a sudden Dan Severn starts tapping. And
what happened?
So, yeah, what happened? So when I was Boris Alexiev, I put on a triangle choke one time somewhere in like Columbus, Ohio or something. And it was crickets when I won. And no one understood what happened. Like, they thought, they just didn't know what I was supposed to be, what supposedly had happened. But now someone goes for a triangle and the audience erupts because they know there's danger and jeopardy and you can win the match and stuff. So the audience has come a long way in terms of understanding what real grappling is. And I just wanted to be able to, give my athletes the arsenal they're going to need.
Right, being ahead of the curve, as they say. Before we go, I want to just touch on a little bit about the judo and how well Canada is doing, particularly this year in Tokyo. And judo being the national sport in Japan, and for our Canadian team to go there and do what they did was just phenomenal. Jessica Klimke came in and won her. Just barely punched her ticket to the Olympics. Had to win the world title to get there. And beat people she never beat before. And then she got the bronze medal. And then a couple of days later, Kat Boschman Pinard, at 63 kilos, she comes in, she takes home the bronze medal. Then our friend Shadi, he comes in, he finished Elnahas, he finishes fifth, and a guy who, you got to think that he might be the favorite. So might be the favorite going into Paris. And Arthur Magelladon, he's another fifth place finish. So we have these guys who are guys and gals, and of course Priscilla Gagne, we talked about her on the show, and then she pulls off with she gets a silver medal, and we've had her on the show in the Paralympics, and it's just great to see Canada doing so well. What do you attribute that to, that success?
Well, when they took the Olympic Stadium in Montreal, and they kind of chopped when the Expos left, they really repurposed it. And it's the national training center for a lot of sports. Like the pool is like, sorry, my cauliflower ear pushes out my thing from time to time. And that's what like the weight room is incredible. They have nutritionists, they have strength and conditioning coaches. It's just a real, it has to be the facility. Of course, they have multiple coaches and you can kind of focus on athletes, and just the program. It starts from the IJF. The IJF, the president is Marius Wieser. He, like everyone in the IJF, loves this guy for what he's done and how he's transformed the International Judo Federation. And it really does have a trickle-down effect to all the different countries. The events are uniform. The quality is incredible. The subtle changes they made to the rules of competition. And man, there's a lot of the World Judo Tour is awesome. If you know judo, the events are so exciting. Canada is just good at it. We've kind of always been good at it, but we've always had like one guy here and one guy there. You know, from Phil Takahashi taking a bronze medal back in the day, and Nicholas Gill for a while. There have been some droughts, but we had a really good judo team even in the 80s and the 90s, and now it's better. I saw Shadi in Montreal a few weeks ago. Actually, but there was a professional wrestling event out there, and he came as my guest. And it's so funny because we talked about it multiple times now. And you watch, he's going to be a WWE superstar, and we're going to have this footage to go look back on and say we called it, right? We called it, and then we talked about it. And he has the passion, he has the drive, he has the look, and he has a connection. And so pretty awesome one day when we see Shadi live on SmackDown or Raw or something like that.
Yes, and Bianca as well, right? And
She'll be there, yeah.
I wanted to come back to Bianca, because here's a gal who a smart girl. From what I understand, she also had aspirations of being a surgeon at one time. I think I heard.
She got her biology degree from Western, and she was on the. This year, she was what the heck is it called when you're like the top, like the above a certain
Dean's list.
Dean's list, yeah. Dean's list, did good, yeah.
That's awesome. But just the budget there looks a little worse for wear on that one. But
yeah.
But she's obviously got the desire, and she's trying to follow in your footsteps, and maybe even take it a little bit further. It's pretty amazing to see what she's doing.
So.
Yeah. But what a career you've had, and it's terrific to catch up with you like this, Anthony. It's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. Of course, as a guest on the Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show, we got a gift certificate for you from Classica Imports. We'll give you Jeff's contact information. You can hook up with him. He's got a gift certificate for you down there. They've got some great Italian threads, which is pretty appropriate, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, man. So we got more sports coming up, and remember, we're all in this together. Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
Slow play. It's a slippery slope. First you go looking for that lost ball, and then everything goes sideways. There are a lot of golfers on the course. Make certain of your point of entry, look quickly, and move on. Remember, we're here for a good time, not a long time. Find anything, Bob?
Not yet.
Hey, I'm Canadian rocker Tommy Gunn, and you got more Joe Tilley Sports coming up.
Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com.
Okay, time for my COSA Swiss pick of the week. Last week I went to Mohawk for Saturday night's grassroots final for 3-year-old filly trotters. You know, I took PL Opportunity, who picked up an impressive victory last week. I should have stuck with her. Instead, I went to Bob McLaren Midnight Miracle, who was looking great at the half, but she couldn't hold on. PL Opportunity with Trevor Henry with another terrific finish and another big win. Third in a row for trainer-owner Matt Dupuis. Let's get the call of the finish from Ken Middleton.
Opportunity, who made that big move coming out of the final turn, and she'll draw clear for Henry late. It's PL Opportunity. PL Opportunity to win the grassroots final by 2.5 lengths. Up for second, Stonebridge Strong.
Yes, that's a nice filly. Midnight Miracle was fifth. This week we're heading to Western Fair Raceway for Tuesday night's sixth race. I'm going to take the number 3 horse, Outlaw Badlands, driven by Jason Ryan. And I'm also going to go with a $1 exact box 234. My bankroll down to $70. Time to get a big W. Here we go. For all the racing updates, visit COSA TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options. Okay, lots of good news for the Maple Leafs as they prepare for the season opener. They're going to be able to fill the joint. That's good news. And they wrapped up the preseason with a nice win over the Senators to finish at 5-1 for the preseason. Nick Ritchie showing he deserves a look at some serious ice time in this club. Finished off a nice setup from Wayne Simmons for his 3rd goal of the preseason. Michael Bunting had 4 in the preliminary action. Austin Matthews still slated to be ready for the opener against the hated Habs. Jack Campbell, he's been excellent so far. Unfortunately, Ilya Mikheyev left with a hand injury. Man, the guy seems like he's snake bit a little bit. Preseason wins and losses mean diddly squat, but we do get an idea of what we might expect from some of the newest players. Take Scott A. Barnes, for example. The number 4 overall pick has shown some very positive signs. His attitude is tremendous. Nice feed from Freddie Van Vliet. And how about Malachi Flynn? I like what I see from this club, guys. I'll tell you right now, the Raps are a playoff team, and as well as the Leafs. The Dinos open the season at home October 20th against the Wizards in front of a full house. Yay! It'll be their first home game since February 28th, 2020. The Argos solidified their hold on top spot in the CFL East in the annual Thanksgiving Classic in Hamilton. After a rough first half, McLeod Bethel Thompson got his act together. And, of course, they got a Boris Beatty field goal with no time left, 44 yards out. They trimmed the Ticats 24-23. They improved to 6-3, while the Cats fall to 4-5. Oh, no, oh, no. In other games, the Alouettes clipped the Red Blacks 17-13, and the Stamps stunned Saskatchewan. The Canadian men's soccer team remains unbeaten after 5 World Cup qualifying matches after ties in Mexico and Jamaica. The government is allowing the national side to put a near-capacity crowd into BMO Field for the next home match against Panama on Wednesday night. Leyla Fernandez continues to roll right along in women's tennis. The 19-year-old Canadian has reached round 3 at the BNP Paribas at Indian Wells. Bianca Andreescu and Denis Shapovalov both came up just a little bit short. Dandy heavyweight fight in Vegas on the weekend. It was bombs away, tons of fun. Wow, 2 big, strong dudes who really went at it. Deontay Wilder dropped Tyson Fury a couple of times in the 4th. Fury, as he has before a few times, got right back up off the canvas, and he dominated the rest of the way. Congrats to Paul Kay, who called Fury by 11th round knockout. That's what happened. The Gypsy King improves to 31-0-1, 22 knockouts, while the Wilder falls to 42-2-1. Next up for Fury, perhaps a unification bout with Alexander Usyk, but Usyk has the rematch clause against Anthony Joshua in the spring. And we close the show with a look at folks who made it all possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. I highly recommend them all. A reminder, this show is now also available on Spotify, iTunes, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, and Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network and Zingo TV. Also, like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. Thanks once again, AnthonyCarelli, for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week when Humble and Fred drop by. We'll see you then. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by
Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. Brought to you by MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business consulting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the needs of our clients in the private, public, and non-for-profit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to doing business and personalized strategies to help people and organizations succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Toronto, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, our team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca to learn more.